All right, I'm Nick. Today, we're gonna take a few minutes. We're out in the garage. It's been a crazy, rainy, windy day here in Northwest Florida. We're gonna talk about deforming kayak hulls. Now, we're not talking about kayaks that just came out of the mold from the factory. We're not talking about kayaks that arrived with defects like forklift damage or quality assurance issues. We are talking about kayaks that you have owned and how they change shape over time. Now, a lot of people don't see this because they own one kayak. That's the kayak. As it slowly changes shape, you don't even think about it. That's just the way it always looked. But we have had 30 different VIN numbers of a Predator PDL, 30, 28 or 30 different VIN numbers, right? Since 2016. That is a lot of kayaks. I have seen so many different variations in these things from when they arrive to when they leave to fitting parts on them, because we make the parts and I try to put it on more than one kayak. That way I have an idea of, well, maybe this kayak's a little bit shaped a little bit differently or something like that. When we first ran into this issue was after or shortly after we released the handle mounts. We didn't really advertise them. They kind of just started selling themselves. We started shipping a bunch to the Northeast. It's cold, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, stuff like that. It was the beginning of winter, and people were having trouble installing them. A few guys over tighten, the bolts or the screws on the outside, and it would crack it. But what I told them was, hey, don't work on the kayak until the kayak is warmed up. You can't move cold plastic, right? You want that kayak to go outside in the sun, let the sun heat it up, let that plastic become workable, and then work on it. I tell people that for everything you do to the kayak. It doesn't matter what it is. Get the kayak outside, let it heat up. Make the area you're working on easier to work on. Fortunately, we live in Florida, so it's not cold very often, and the sun is usually out every day, some point in the day. I know a lot of you guys leave your kayaks on, trailers or on the ground or stored on its side or stored up, on lifts on top of the garage, and all winter, 6-7 months. I grew up in Ohio. I understand you can't use it all the time, so you store it. It's out of sight, it's out of mind, blah, blah, blah. Oh, spring is here. Pull the kayak out. Let's do stuff to it. One of the problems we ran into in the last few days were people have been receiving their seat risers, but they go to put them in place and they go, man, Nick, it won't fit. And then they go, Nick, I watched your video. There's a ton of wiggle room. Mine doesn't have that. So it first happened to a person in Ohio. I called him, we talked, we pulled out the tape measures together, and we made some measurements. We talked about some things. I was like, hey, sir, do me a favor, drag your kayak out in the sun, give it 5 minutes, and then see if you can kind of push the kayak apart a little bit. If you're familiar with the Predator series, you'll see in some of these photos, it has a hump on each side. One side has a bungee on it, and the other side is just where the lever is for the rudder system. That part kind of bends in a little bit over time, whether it's just because it was stored on the side, because sitting in the seat, all of these different things. Could just be sitting on the trailer, could be a number of things. Too cold, I guess not too cold, but just super cold for 6 months without anyone touching it. The kayak changes shapes and things move around. You don't need to go out there with a hair dryer or a heat gun or boiling water. Just set the kayak out in the sun for an evening or afternoon, and then go over there and then work on it. You'll be amazed how much play are in these kayaks. Even I can go over here right now to these kayaks, put my hand on them, and I'll film it. I'll film it after this, so I'll put it right here. I can push the kayak apart. It's not even warm out. I got a sweatshirt on outside. It's not even warm out there. It's been raining all day. The sun hasn't been out. The kayaks still move and shift. So when you see these issues, take your kayak outside, set it out in the sun. Even if you have a big dent in it, you can set it outside in the sun, and most of the time, that is all it takes. It is plastic. It is not fiberglass. It is not some kind of high-strength system. It is roto-molded plastic. So before you think you have a major problem, if you could see the flaws in all these kayaks, you would blow your mind. Here's a photo that I had Brian send me of his kayak. You can see he has the same issue. The seat risers are spaced, they're too far in, and those humps kind of come in a little bit. Put it outside in the sun. You turn on his garage, or you turn on the heat on his garage. It's snowing in Michigan. Boom, the kayak is instantly easier to work with. It's a major issue. It's not a big issue from the kayak company. You shouldn't be concerned about it. It's just you should understand what is happening to the product that you bought. The kayak's not failing. You're not running into all kinds of problems. It's just the plastic adjusting to the hotness and the coldness and going back and forth and being strapped down and not being strapped down. They change shapes. It's one of the reasons I always try to store ours on PVC risers. That way the bottom of the kayak does this. It keeps the hull in the correct shape that it was meant to be, and that stuff's important. It's super simple. Deforming kayak hulls is nothing new. It's been going on forever. Every kayak I've ever owned, I did it to a PA. My first ever pedal kayak, I had a rack I built for it initially, but the rack didn't have PVC on it. It was a wooden tabletop, and if you're familiar with the Pro Angler, it does like the hull does this and like this. Mine was pretty much like flat. Like it just like, there was no grooves in it anymore because the weight of the kayak and the heat of Florida changed the bottom of the kayak. And that was my first experience. And that was early 2015. Really, yeah, somewhere in there. Big, oh no, I guess, man, it might have been before that. I'm getting old. Simple things happen like that. It's nothing you should be worried about. You just need to understand that the sun is your friend. It can be your enemy, but it really is your friend when it comes to fixing these problems. And that's it. Deforming kayak hulls in a nutshell. Weather, temperature related for the most part. Easy to fix. Don't sweat it. No big deal. If you guys have any questions about it, just leave a comment and let me know. And I help you guys out the best I can. If you ordered a part and it doesn't fit perfectly, consider putting it out in the sun. Give me a call. I'll walk you through it. It's no big deal. As normal, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch.